I still continue my timeline into the official outbreak of the Second World War video series. So I'm now starting to read news from the Wikipedia article on August 1939 that recounts events that happened on August the 26th, 1939, which was the last Saturday before the Second World War officially broke out. The Cvetković-Maček Agreement established the Banovina of Croatia, which had a degree of self-government in Yugoslavia. The 1939 Nuremberg rally, scheduled to begin on September the 2nd, was postponed indefinitely because Hitler had decided to send the German armies against Poland on September the 1st. Mussolini sent Hitler another message, this time expressing his desire to have Italy march side by side with Germany. Attached to the message was a long list of materials Italy would require to fight a war and needed Germany to provide. And Mussolini well knew that there was no way Germany could supply it. When the German officials asked the Italian ambassador when the delivery was expected, he replied immediately before the beginning of hostilities, leaving no room for negotiation on the matter. The British ambassador to Germany, Sir Neville Henderson, flew back to London to relay Hitler's offer to the British government. Nazi Germany announced rationing for shoes, textiles, and certain food items. Every person in the country would require a rationing card in order to make purchases. Birger Dalerus, that Swedish businessman who was a friend or an acquaintance of Marshal Hermann Göring, met again the British Foreign Secretary or Foreign Minister Lord Halifax and convinced him to write a letter expressing Britain's desire to reach a peaceful settlement. Dalerus flew back to Berlin and gave the letter to Göring that night. Göring, however, declared that Hitler must be informed immediately of its contents. Dalerus accepted Göring's invitation to come to the Chancellery or Hitler's office in Berlin and meet Hitler for the second time, although the hour was late. German submarine U-43 was commissioned, and U stood for Unterseeboot, or undersea boat. On August the 27th, 1939, which was the last Sunday before the Second World War officially broke out, Hitler was woken up just after midnight and met Birger Dalerus and Göring. Dalerus later recalled Hitler as appearing glassy-eyed and highly agitated, at one point bizarrely or crazily rambling in a monologue, repetitively asserting that Germany could win a rapid war and that he would build U-boats, and airplanes, and I shall annihilate my enemies. After calming down, Hitler laid out a set of proposals more detailed than Neville Henderson had been given, which included that the free city of Danzig would be annexed by Germany. The Polish corridor also would be annexed, cutting therefore Poland off the Baltic Sea's southern coast. Dalerus flew back to London, conferred with Halifax and Chamberlain, and then flew back to Germany that same day to relay Britain's mixed reaction to the proposals. The Heinkel HE-178, the world's first aircraft to fly under turbojet power, had its first flight in Rostock Marine, Germany. The pilot was Erich Wachsitz. In a famous football match known in Poland as the Last Game, Poland defeated the highly renowned Hungarian team 4-2 in the greatest Polish football victory up to that time. I just wonder how many of the players perished in the Second World War. Hopefully none, but it's possible that some of them at least, were unfortunately killed. On August the 28th, 1939, which was Monday, the last Monday before the Second World War officially broke out in Europe, in the Tarnów rail station bomb attack in southern Poland, a time bomb left by a German agent exploded, killing 20 and wounding 35. So that clearly, along with the Yablunkov or Yablunkov Pass incident that had happened some 2 to 3 days before, showed to Poles that, at least those Poles who were alert militarily, that Germany clearly was planning to invade Poland. And of course those Poles who were patrolling the Polish-German borders, well, this information comes from the semi-fictional or largely fictional Mila or Miła 18 novel by the late American writer Leon Uris, that German concentrations of troops were heavy, very heavy, on the Polish border. However, unfortunately, most of the Polish top military officers expected the German attack not to occur until 1942, until the very last days of August 1939, and by then it was too late to change these plans. And these were probably the start of the so-called Operation Himmler, whereby throughout the Polish-German border, from the southern coast of the Baltic Sea all the way down to Upper Silesia, groups of SS soldiers directed by Heinrich Himmler, dressed in Polish military uniforms, would make fake attacks along the border, scare local residents with random shots, would destroy or damage property along the border. In the Polish corridor, they even torched houses, set them on fire, and would then retreat, leaving behind bodies of assassinated or killed concentration camp prisoners who were dressed in Polish army uniforms, and then their corpses, usually they had already been killed by lethal injection, but their dead corpses were then shot to give the appearance that they had supposedly died during border skirmishes. Sorry. And these incidents then were published in the Nazi German propaganda to show that supposedly Poland had already started a war against Nazi Germany, and Germany simply would then retaliate by invading Poland. Berliners anticipating more rationing made the greatest run on food stores in decades. Neville Henderson flew back to Berlin with his government's official reply. Britain was prepared to discuss Hitler's proposal and agreed that there must be settlement of differences between Germany and Poland, but noted that everything would depend on what kind of settlement and by what method it would be reached. Germany was reminded that the British government had obligations to Poland and was bound by those obligations and intended to honor those obligations. They could not, for any advantage offered to Great Britain, acquiesce in a settlement which put in jeopardy the independence of a state to whom they have given their guarantee. So, in polite diplomatic language, this meant that should Germany invade Poland, Britain would be obliged to declare war on Germany, which it did. Britain suggested that the next step should be the initiation of direct discussions between the German and Polish governments on a basis which would include the principles stated above, namely the safeguarding of Poland's essential interests and the securing of the settlement by an international guarantee. The reply concluded with a warning that if no settlement was reached, there would be no hopes for better German-British relations. The two countries would enter war, and that might well plunge the whole world into war. And then that would be an unparalleled calamity in history. Hitler read a German translation of the British government's note. Apparently his English was not good enough for him to understand the original English language version of the note. And he told Henderson that he was willing to negotiate with Britain, but Poland could not be reasonable. Henderson firmly replied that Hitler would have to choose between a war with Poland or friendship with Britain. Hitler said he would prepare a written reply of his own. The border between Germany and France was closed. On August the 29th, 1939, which was Tuesday, Neville Chamberlain addressed the House of Commons on the international situation and spoke generally of the discussions that had been undertaken with Germany. The British people are said sometimes to be slow to make up their minds, but having made them up, they do not readily let go, he said in conclusion. The issue of peace or war is still undecided, and we will still hope and still will work for peace, but we will abate no jot of our resolution to hold fast to the line with which we have laid down for ourselves. In other words, he was saying basically that he would have to bring Britain into a war with Germany if necessary. Josef Tiso declared martial law in Slovakia. Articles were posted ordering Slovaks to accept German currency and furnish food to the German soldiers here to protect our young state against the threatening Polish danger. Never mind that Poland had probably no serious plans to invade Slovakia, only to defend its southern border against a German-Slovak invasion. According to the Peking plan, 3 Polish destroyers or Polish Navy vessels departed from Poland and headed to the United Kingdom so they would not be sunk or captured in a German invasion. Hitler demanded the return of Danzig and the Polish corridor and wrote that Germany could no longer share Britain's view that these grave differences can be resolved by direct negotiations. Still, Hitler, partly contradicting himself, wrote that Germany was prepared to enter direct discussions to give the British government and the British nation a proof of the sincerity of Germany's intentions to enter into a lasting friendship with Great Britain. So Hitler was basically publishing fake news, fake promises. On August the 30th, 1939, which was Wednesday, Poland's government at last ordered a partial mobilization. Neville Henderson handed Joachim von Ribbentrop the British government's reply at midnight. And he basically, or the reply basically said that they understood fully the German position. However, they were prepared to defend Poland should Germany decide to invade Poland. It expressed reservation in regard to the statement of the particular demands put forward by Germany, but said that German proposals would be fully examined during discussions. And it declared that while Germany had vital interests that its government wanted to defend, and Britain or the British government understood that also Poland had vital interests. So this was a subtle diplomatic way, polite way, stating that Poland also had a right to exist and to defend itself as an independent country in the event of a foreign, including German, invasion. On August the 31st, 1939, which was Thursday, the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union, the country's rubber-stamp parliament, ratified the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The Royal Navy was mobilized and Army and Royal Air Force reserves were called up. An official order was given in Britain to evacuate civilians from cities and towns that were likely targets for enemy bombing. Most of the evacuees were school children. During the next few days, nearly 3 million people would be relocated. Hitler issued Directive Number 1, ordering an attack on Poland to begin on September the 1st at 4:45 a.m. Now that all the political possibilities of disposing by peaceful means of a situation on the eastern frontier, which is intolerable for Germany, are exhausted, I have determined on a solution by force, the directive read. Never mind that Poles would have been willing to negotiate had Germany not made so atrocious demands, especially the surrender of the Polish corridor to Germany, which would effectively had exposed Poland in a grave way to German invasion, full invasion also from the north, and which would of course have significantly reduced Poland's foreign trade, even in the event of a delayed war or no war at all. At 6:15 p.m., the German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop met the Polish ambassador to Germany, Mr. Józef Lipski, for over 5 hours after, that was over 5 hours after Lipski had requested an audience. He said the Polish government would be making a formal reply about direct negotiations in the next few hours. Then Foreign Minister von Ribbentrop asked Ambassador Lipski if he was empowered to negotiate. Lipski admitted that he wasn't for the time being. Von Ribbentrop simply told him, in that case, there is nothing to discuss, and Lipski left. Lipski returned to the embassy and found that his telephone line had been cut, and I'm sure that he then became alarmed and probably assumed that Germany was about to invade Poland very soon. And if he assumed that, he was right. Then there was the Gleiwitz incident, the most famous and most propagandistic probably of those Operation Himmler incidents, where a group of SS soldiers dressed in Polish army uniforms staged a fake attack on the small radio station of Gleiwitz, which only had a radius of about 40 to 50 kilometers. This comes from a dramatized film about the incident, and mostly was used only for weather reports. And then one of them read in broken Polish a statement which claimed that this station was in Polish hands, and urged the Poles who were living on the German side of Upper Silesia, for example in Gleiwitz, to rise up against the Nazi tyranny, because the Polish army would rescue them. And outside the radio station, they dumped the bodies of certain concentration camp prisoners who had been killed by lethal injection, and then they were still shot for appearance. They also had arrested, I think on the previous day, Mr. Franz or Franciszek Honyok, who was an Upper Silesian farmer, if I remember correctly, known for his sympathies towards the Poles. And then on September the 1st, 1939, then photographs of these people's bodies were published, showing that supposedly they were Polish bandits who had tried to take over the Gleiwitz radio station, which of course was not true. At 9:00 p.m. German time, the German radio interrupted regular programming to present the government's 16-point proposal for Poland. The demand for the restoration of Danzig to the Reich was maintained, but the question of the Polish corridor was now to be settled by a plebiscite. Another piece of Nazi fake news, because earlier that day, many hours before, Hitler already had, or several hours before, Hitler had already issued to the German army the orders to attack Poland at 4:45 a.m. the following day. Warsaw never heard the proposal because communications between Germany and Poland were cut off.